Today we're going to talk about how to choose a photograph so that you can have success in all your paintings. So let's get started. This question was asked by Julia Boss. She said, "Hello, thanks for the video," and she's referring to the video about massing for value, mixing for color. And she says, "If I want to make a portrait from a black and white dog, in how many value tones would be the best to do the photo? I do have an app who does it in 4 values. It does not look realistic then." Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. What you see in front of you is a no-tan, meaning a black and white of what you can obviously see is 2 pumpkins. What's really important here in judging your photographs is that underlying every photograph that you choose, there's a strong what they call no-tan, N-O-T-A-N. It's a Japanese word that means has to do with design and equality in design, so that there's balance in all the compositions that you do. It can be a very complicated composition like this one, or it can be more simple like the pumpkins, or like the abstract that's coming up. But the idea is not that you cannot use any photograph. Not all photographs will make good paintings, unfortunately. Happy snaps can be really endearing to your heart, but won't make good paintings. This is a painting by Winslow Homer. I think you probably know it. He was known for driving around for hours before finding the exact subject he wanted and where he wanted to paint it from. And here it is in color. But you could see from the underlying black, white, and gray that it held together very, very well. And by held together, I'm talking about design elements. All right, now let's look at a photograph of mine which does not work very well as an underlying photograph, because you look at the boat, then you look at the raft, you look at the boat, you look at the raft, and there's really nothing to unify the painting. There's some parallels in the ground below and in the mountains across, but it's just not a good design. It's never going to work. Here is an example of a no-tan. So in other words, in painting this dog, just by putting in the darks and leaving the whites of the paper white, you already know what this painting is going to be. And there are the midtones. All right, let's look at, in other words, you have to have connecting shapes that identify what you are trying to paint. Here's an example of which I don't think works very well as in terms of a no-tan. Again, things are sort of scattered about. They're pretty colors and everything, but there's no unifying shapes. This I've never used as a painting because I don't think it has any unifying shapes. You know, if I was to go ahead and do it, it would end up looking like wallpaper. Now here's an example, and you can look at composition books, but there's so many reasons why this photograph doesn't work. First of all, it's not very savory to be looking in someone's bathroom, and the shapes don't work. That big white toilet on the left is going to be competing with the dog shape and competing with the robe. It just doesn't work. Here's another painting which doesn't work. You see how the all those circular colors, although the colors are pleasing and there's nothing more pleasing than kittens, it's very confusing to the eye. There are no underlying shapes that connect and that define what the artist, who was me, wants you to look at. Here, this is going to make a good no-tan, and because it has very clear lights, darks, and mediums that interlock, and there it is as a painting. So you can have something that's what I call this an islands surrounded by oceans painting. You can have that kind of painting, but it will work as long as you have shapes that connect. This composition, this picture has always worked and made a good painting because the underlying no-tan, the underlying shapes connect. And you'll start to get a good eye for this the more that you do. This is one that would not work. You can see why. There's no place. You just find your eye floating all around the space with no place to land. Right, this is an example of a no-tan that I never finished. You can already see what this painting is going to be just based on the darks that I put in. And so it's missing the midtones and the lights, but you can tell it's going to be a home, just based on those interlocking shapes, simplifying and interlocking shapes. Here's a painting. This is from my Visual Learner's Guide, which is an online curriculum. And this is the first exercise, which is painting apples. And this person, you find, and I show you where the no-tan is. And this is a student's piece. But you can see how those three apples are connected by forms and shapes. This was back in the day when I was doing a lot of pet portraits. And again, making sure that the no-tan was going to work from the very beginning. If a no-tan works from the beginning, then the rest of the painting is relatively easy. Here's an example of a failure. This was not, I did not make this into, it was not a good no-tan. This is a good example of using a photo that you just are in love with because you like the subject, but it doesn't hang together at all. If you want to really explore no-tan, take a look at anything that Andrew Wyeth does. I mean, he's a fantastic draftsman and designer and observer and all of that. But if you really blur your eyes at any of his compositions, they work abstractly just as well as they work figuratively. And he often will work in tonal, monotone, so you don't get distracted by color. No bells and whistles in his paintings. I mean, in terms of, he's not showing off, that's for sure. But very rooted in good design. Here's an example of mine, and again, not a good no-tan underneath, so I consider this not a successful painting. A on effort, but I was doomed from the very beginning. This is one of my favorite paintings, which is Andrew Wyeth's painting of a white dog in a white room on a white bed. I mean, you can't get any more simplified than that. But he's so careful with value that that your eye creates the rest of the color, and it becomes a memorable image. So, in conclusion, I just want to say, remember to keep the white to your paper white, your paints wet, master value mix for color, and if you're going to choose a photograph, make sure that it fits the no-tan curriculum. Make sure that it is balanced in terms of lights and darks. If things are all scattered about or your eye is confused, no matter how good a painter you are or how much you're in love with that photograph, it's just not going to work. So sometimes, writers who write great first drafts say, and then have to edit their work, they say they have to murder their little darlings. Well, sometimes you have to murder your little darlings in paintings too, and you just are not able to use that snapshot, not because it isn't a lovely snapshot of someone that you love, but it's just not going to work as a painting. All right, so please join my YouTube channel, and I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.